Hello and welcome to the Supernatural Track here at Continual. I'm your host, Gail Z. Martin, and tonight we are talking about some what ifs. Whatever happened to? Now, of course, in our finale, we got a few answers. We got to see Sam and Dean, of course. We found out a little bit about what happened to Jack and Cass. We saw Bobby in heaven. We know John and Mary were there. But, what about that period when Dean was gone, Sam was raising Dean Jr., and what happened to everybody else? So let's indulge some headcanon here and what we think ever happened to, and let's start with Jody Mills. But before that, let's let our wonderful panelists introduce themselves, starting with Carole Stokes.
Hi, I'm Carole Stokes, and you can find me here on Facebook and Continual and the TFWNC group under that name, and I'm on Twitter as true_firesign10. I'm a fanfic writer, and all my fanfic is on AO3 under firesign10. Mind tags.
Nice. Carol Malcolm.
Yes, I'm Carole Malcolm, the director of the Urban Fantasy Track at DragonCon. And I do cover Supernatural on the track and have ever since the track first began in 2009, or 2013, I'm sorry. I watched the show prior to that, so I was very pleased though when I was told, "Oh, you get Supernatural." I'm like, "Well, of course." But in any case, I've enjoyed going back, watching the earlier seasons, which Gail has been on, all of them so far. What I'm calling the Supernatural Rewind, where we go back and cover one season a month, beginning with season 1, of course, and we're getting ready to do season 10 later this month. So that's something to look forward to.
And I'm Gail Z. Martin, and Morgan Bryce. As Gail, I write epic fantasy, urban fantasy, and more. As Morgan, I write urban fantasy, male paranormal romance, but all the modern worlds are ones where Sam and Dean could walk in and feel right at home. I also run the Supernatural TFWNC Facebook group, and I'm a staff writer for the Winchester Family Business. So when I go down a rabbit hole in Supernatural case, I keep on going.
The never ending. It's like it's not a rabbit hole, it's a tunnel, and we don't know where it will end. Where will it come out?
It's more of a rabbit infinity loop, maybe.
Okay, that's good.
That's okay with me. So Jody Mills, jumped the gun there at the beginning, but what do we think happened? We got to see that she was still there when Chuck did the Thanos snap, and then we presume she came back, but we don't really hear any more about her after that. What do you think? What do you think she did for the rest of her life? Carole Stokes? And since you're both named Carole, I'm going to have to use both names.
Right. That's.
You can always call me Firesign.
That's true.
I answer to that, or Fire. I answer to Fire. I think she kind of just kept on keeping on. I think she continued to do her sheriffly duties, but yet keeping that eye out for untoward deaths and, sketchy things going on, so that she could either deal with them or toss them over to another hunter. I think that even though we never saw this all happen with Wayward Sisters and everything, nonetheless, the girls were there. And so I would think that they just also kept on, doing their thing, and Jody being their home base. I still see her hunting with Donna. Just being very pragmatic about life. I mean, she's been through a lot at this point, but she doesn't take anything for granted. So I think whatever pleasure she has, whether it be Sunday dinner every once in a while where everybody's at the table eating roast chicken, or whatever, she enjoys those moments because she knows how precious they are, you know, and how fleeting they can be. But I just see her sticking to the past.
Okay. Carol Malcolm.
I mean, I agree. She had some teenagers to complete, you know, that needed to finish being raised. So I'm sure that she continued on with that. But I also, you know, I like to think that since she had, you know, her family and the terrible thing that happened with her family, and we saw, you know, she tried the online dating thing. Ended up with Carole, which was awesome. In the rewatch, I had forgotten that. I mean, so when I saw it, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's hilarious." I mean, I mean, it was terrible and funny at the same time, as is most of what has anything to do with Crowley. But in any case, I would like to think that maybe Jody managed to, you know, at least find someone that was some kind of a companion, if even if it was not somebody that she. No, I'm not saying she would have to get married again, but you could tell that she was kind of interested in having those kinds of relationships. You know, that those meant something to her. Now it could be that she doesn't want to do that because, you know, the last one didn't turn out so well through no fault of hers. But you know, but I like to think that maybe she, you know, found someone, even, you know, as I said, if it wasn't, you know, a permanent or, uh, you know, so, but somebody that she could at least spend time with, you know, in a romantic sense, that she, you know, made to maybe fill a little bit of that she was looking for.
See, I'm thinking that Jody continued being sheriff while the girls were getting through school to kind of provide a home base and make sure they were trained well, and hunting with Donna on the weekend and all that kind of thing. And I think after the girls left home, maybe she and Donna kind of did a Kate and Allie thing where they move into the bunker and they get Mrs. Tran and they get Kathleen from the Benders and maybe the really good lady detective from The Usual Suspects. And they kind of do this gunpowder milkshake thing with the bunker where they become not only the new Bobby, but the librarians, because you know the boys grabbed the Campbell Library and they grabbed Bobby's library, and they probably went back for Cuthbert St. Clair's library. And none of that stuff's been completely cataloged. So I can just see Linda Tran in there, you know, getting, because she's just as OCD as Kevin was, getting everything, you know, in the card catalog and picking up Sam's work. And I can also see Jody and Donna especially being the guardians of the Winchester Gospels and the Winchester legacy to make sure that Sam and Dean are never forgotten. And maybe she stays in touch with Sam while, you know, he's raising Dean Jr. and he's there for help, but he doesn't want to get real involved. But, you know, he hears from her. And I can just see them having this great time in the bunker, carrying on the legacy with mimosas. You know, why not?
Yeah, yeah. I think this is perfect. I think that you ought to pitch this to some network. I'd love to go with it. Well, you know, when you talk about spin-offs, and Carol mentioned the Wayward Sisters that didn't happen, and I know a lot of people were disappointed about that. Um, but my contention always was that they would never have had a spinoff while the show was still on.
Right.
That it just was never going to get the kind of attention that, you know, that the show itself was going to get. But you know, I think I think you might be on something there, Gail. I think that one would be a, you know, a very worthy and interesting, you know, spinoff. Something that does, I don't know, gives kind of an homage to the show, and while at the same time is something of its own, you know, having the ladies in charge. Because let's face it, both Donna and Jody, you know, until the snap, they had lived, which was unusual for women in Supernatural. So, and I like to think that they did come back after Jack took over.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
they lived, neither of them ever slept with Sam. How we know there was never
Thank
any
goodness.
hanky-panky because they survived. But what do you think about Donna? My theories aside, did she find a third guy named Doug who was the charm? Did she buy a dog and name him Doug? Did she
And
did she swear off Doug's? What do you
Oh
think
my
happened to Donna? Carole, Malcolm?
I think with Donna that she seemed to really enjoy her job, as sheriff, and having this other layer of the world being exposed to her. She has all this new information. There's this, a whole part of the world that, as she put it, it's bigger and darker. And that was a good, way to describe what she was feeling. I like to think that, yes, she was going to continue being a sheriff, and she strikes me more as, when it comes to Doug's, that she probably did give up on Doug's. And, I could see Donna deciding that for her, she might enjoy dating and having fun, but she was not interested in being tied down to any one person because she was enjoying her job. She, liked the unofficial side job too of hunting. So I kind of see her doing those things. But I'm really stuck now, Gail, on your idea. So yeah, we'll see. I'm now I'm going to be thinking about that one.
Carole, how about Carole Stokes? How about you?
I think she gave up on dogs. And, really, I think she gives up on men. And I can see Donna deciding she's going to walk the lady side of the street and end up being much happier because there's so much less judgment and, curtailing of one's personal freedoms and everything. And so she's very happy, having a girlfriend now and then, and but definitely continuing hunting. And she's too nurturing of everybody to not want to keep people safe. So, like Jody, still sheriffing, still hunting, but other than that, she's sworn off men and having a gay old time.
Well, I gotta say though, I think that women can be just as judgmental as men. So
Absolutely,
if not more so.
But she's gonna, having been through those experiences, she's not gonna pick people who are not,
Right.
She's sadder and wiser.
Carole, Malcolm brought up spin-offs, and we talked about, my little vision on the Wayward Sisters. But Ann and Melissa and I had gotten talking about the CW might get sold, and we were thinking about, well, what happens, to the CEO who really likes Jared and Jensen and the CW. And so we started coming up with ideas if you did a whole Supernatural spin-off network, the channel Winchester for the CW. And of course it would have the missing years with Sam and Dean coming back for between that. But some of the ones we came up with were the Rufus and Bobby Show, My Three Werewolves starring Garth, Touched by an Angel. They would be ripped from the headline stories of people who became vessels and lived to talk about it. The Real Housewives of Hell 66666 with Rowena, Abaddon, and Dagon. The Hexed Voice, in which famous singers get hexed into being in animal form until they can win their true form back. The Demonic Bachelor starring Crowley. Days of Our Roadhouse, which is an ongoing drama at Harvell's Roadhouse. And Heaven Can Wait with Angels Who Refuse to Go Home, not to mention Gardening with Joshua, Fly Fishing with Ramiel, and I Love Lucy.
That's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. I would be watching that 24/7. And writing scripts for it.
There was also I Dream of Ginny, DJINNI, which is, and a Fantasy Island remake starring Gabriel, where he throws people into wormholes and alternative universes and they have to find their way out. Oh, Cuthbert Sinclair's Wild Kingdom, Hoarders with Luther Shrike, Storage Wars Hunter Edition, Dr. Sexy MD, and Wild Wild West with Samuel Colt, which is zombies in the Old West, and In Search of, starring Adam and his golem as they hunt down the Thule and retrieve stolen relics. And The Late Night is Casa Erotica and the Adventures of the Pizza Man. I think we've got it programmed, ladies. I think
that's fabulous. That's fabulous. That's a gold star slate right there.
I want to see Fantasy Island with Gabriel. I mean, throw him into wormholes.
Yeah, yeah. Now that one you would have a lot that one would have a lot of possibilities. So that could go on for, a while.
Yeah. Well, the original, I'll bring us back on topic in a minute here, but the original Island was really dark. It wasn't the frothy thing it became. It was kind of spooky. And then they made it all fun. So I think we can take it back.
And people were learning these deep moral lessons, where either they wanted something that wasn't good for them and they didn't know it, or they, were doing something they shouldn't be and they had to learn the repercussions of it, or, it was real Twilight Zone-y.
Yeah, it was.
It was not all just like, here you won Miss America or whatever. It was.
Yeah, it was.
This is what you think you want. Yeah, see how much you still want it.
So back to whatever became of. Now we saw Garth's happy ending, but what do you think happened after that? I mean, he's raising 2, maybe more werewolf pups. What happens after that? And being a dentist,
right.
Well,
he's got a whole new clientele too.
Yeah, his dentist practice has to flourish because he's got all of these fangs and canines and everything that need to be taken care of. I can only imagine that having werewolf twin sons is, not a walk in the park, especially adolescents. Maybe he had a third, where he finally got his little pup princess there. And she wants to go out with the werewolves on the wrong side of town where they're all nice and rich and don't hunt people.
Starts dating a poodle.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, yeah, I think I really see Garth as that kind of really good-hearted and not stupid, but often befuddled. Like things are always kind of happening fast, but then at the end, he always gets it and he always figures it out because, that's what he does. He looks goofy in all Marmaduke cartoons on top, but then underneath, he really knows what's going on and he deals with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's good with people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he reads people really well, and I think he does that actually better than either Sam or Dean to a large extent. And because they're, and I'm talking about, the actual human people, because they're so attuned to looking for what isn't regular. But when you're looking for stuff that is, he seems to be, much more in tune with that. And I got a kick out of, when he's first introduced, he worked with Dean, right? And then Sam, when Sam gets around to meeting him, Dean tells Sam, well, he grows on you. He'll grow on you. And then at the end of that episode, Sam's like, I think he is growing on me. And I think that's kind of the way he is. But I think you're right, Carole. I think people do, kind of underestimate him and not expect that he has some of the insights and some of the abilities that he does.
Mm-hmm.
I could see him doing what we're talking about, raising his family, which he seemed, very excited about. And, maybe, things will have progressed enough so that he could actually be involved with the Hunter Network again.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, especially given Gail's idea, he could serve as, feeding information to Jody and Don. I'm telling you, I am stuck on this idea now. You got to write this stuff down because.
And I picture his dental practice having a very strong pediatric side because he has Mr. Fizzles.
That's right. That's true. Yes, he was very good at that. But And we've talked about this, about Garth on one of the Rewind um, episodes that we did, was that the fact that he's such a significant character and he only appeared in 7 episodes in the whole series, only 7, even though he gets mentioned many other times and they're talking to him on the phone. And I think the first mention we get of him is a Weekend at Bobby's, when Bobby's talking to him and like, how are you still alive, or whatever it is he says to him, but the fact that he had such an impact on the series, on the fan base, on the guys themselves, in just 7 episodes, I think that's pretty remarkable. And I think that's a tribute to DJ Qualls, honestly. To make himself that that important to the lore of the show, if you will.
Yeah. Now, AU Bobby was another one who we presume came back after the Thanos snap. What do you think he did after this? I mean, Mary was gone. What do you think? He worked cases himself? Do you think he paired up with Donna and Jody on cases? What do you think AU Bobby did?
I don't know if he would really be a hunter, because he wasn't a hunter in AU.
That's true.
He was a resistance fighter against the Angels, but he wasn't a hunter in the sense that our Bobby was.
Yes, we have to differentiate. Yes.
Yeah. And so, and he was clearly more of a hound dog than our Bobby was. Because wasn't he going after somebody else too? And then he was going after Mary. There was somebody else in there that he was flirting with or something. And then it switched to Mary or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, so I don't picture him necessarily, retreating into a hunting life. I don't know if he maybe just, I don't see him going off to be a hermit, because I feel he was again more of a people person than our Bobby. Our Bobby was kind of curmudgeonly.
Right.
And I saw AU Bobby being cranky, but not necessarily curmudgeonly in that sense.
He could run a specialty hardware store that had a back room for hunters.
Yeah, or a gun shop.
Yeah.
Maybe that would have been his thing, where he could have still been associated and dealing with stuff. There's another show we could have, like Bobby's Pawnbrokers or something.
Right. Bobby's Pawn, yeah. And as long as he's not a mercenary, that's good. But you're right. I mean, he didn't have he didn't have the same background, but he's also struck me as being willing to learn how to make the best, I mean, what he was doing the best that he could in the world he was from. I mean, that was,
absolutely,
he was serving, even though he wasn't a hunter, so to speak.
Right.
He was serving in the same kind of role that a hunter served in the typical, the non-alternate universe. And I think, that he could easily have been someone that would be at least an ally. And, as you said, Gail, maybe helping out occasionally.
Yeah, hunter adjacent.
Yeah, hunter adjacent. Yes, he was definitely hunter adjacent. And, I could definitely see that. Or if he had to give, if he had to help people with some kind of weapons training, or, I mean, things like that, where he could be, working with the next up and coming group of hunters. So I could easily see him doing that.
Maybe he decided he wanted to go and start dating Jody, but Jody is like, it's too weird for her.
Yeah, well, that would be
not
weird.
her Bobby.
Yeah, it was weird enough when it was
she's
married.
Like, no, I don't think so.
Okay, how about Aaron Bass and his Golem? I would have loved to have seen them come back during the series and do some more, Thule hunting and Nazi relics and all that. So what's Aaron and his Golem? What are they up to?
They're in South America.
Go looking for all the deserters or whatever, the people in hiding. Yeah,
Yeah.
Boy,
that
Zale,
could be.
They're following all those, all those threads of the Nazis who scattered and went to ground and stuff. So,
Yeah, the
right
boys
now
from
he's in South
Brazil.
America. Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah. I could.
And he
I
doesn't
could
mind.
see
He doesn't mind that he's there for carnival sometimes too. But then the golem gets frustrated with him, and he's like, "Life is not all mojitos."
Right. Yeah. That you're right, Gail. They would have been interesting to see come back at some point. It's too bad that they didn't need to, kind of resurrect them, at some point, just to give us an idea of what there was going on, because we're led to believe that there was still work to be done in that area. So if that's the case, they had plenty to do. And maybe they come and visit the bunker now and then. Could you imagine? Since I'm in season 10, this person comes to mind, but can you imagine the Gollum and Claire interacting? That would be interesting.
I'm surprised that Aaron and his golem didn't catch up with the Stein family before Dean did. I mean, that just seems like that should have been somebody on their list of problems to take care of.
Or they could have come back
well.
or something. Yeah. But what if Aaron Bass met Hitler's descendant daughter there? Right? And they end up she ends up joining him in his hunt for the Nazis to refute her genealogy.
There you go. Her heritage.
There were people in real life who were the sons and daughters of some really bad folks who renounced it all and
so she joins, at some point they meet and she joins him in his quest.
Yeah. Okay.
Further disgusting the Gollum, yeah.
Yeah. Here's a curveball for you. What about Becky?
Oh. I really liked what they did with Becky at the end, not her getting snapped, of course, but I really liked that she had moved past all the really wackadoo stuff. Not that I'm sure there are people who would think her current life was about wackadoo, but she had moved on. She was happily married. She had a couple of kids. She enjoyed being a mom, and she still had her fandom, but had embraced it in a much less creepy way.
Right, in a healthy fashion. Yes.
Yeah, where she was writing stories to, had her creativity. She had developed this little business. What was she doing? Like little miniatures and stuff?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, that was great. I just loved how they balanced her life in terms of she finally grew up, right? And had a family and everything. But yet, as many of us do, still embraced her fandom and was still involved with it and had made it this large, flourishing part of her life. So I really liked that. And, if she just kept doing that, I would be perfectly happy.
I think she's probably an administrator on AO3, and she has a thriving Etsy shop. And maybe she also is a custodian of the Winchester Gospels and Legacy.
She could have her own show on the Winchester Network, Crafting with Becky.
Yeah.
Though I find Becky to be one of those characters that it was always fun when you'd see her, you knew something off the rails was going to happen. Too much of her would have been too much of her, in my opinion. But I think she would have been perfect, after her kids were a little bit older. I don't mean like totally grown, but when they were old enough and had, things of their own that they were into, I could see her running the supernatural conventions. She was, definitely, one of the, somebody who could have done it because she was somebody mentioned her organizational skills.
I was just going to say she was very organized, and clearly not stupid or anything. She was clearly really bright, which is probably almost what got in her way a little bit, as so many of us have found in real life.
Well, since you brought up the supernatural conventions, how about the two guys who helped Sam and Dean out on the case, who were together and sold copiers
together
and sold copiers or something? You know, in the back of my head, I've always thought that at some point they did a Smith and Wesson, looked at the copier sales, said, take this job and shove it. And maybe they're not doing vampires. Maybe they're doing low-level poltergeists and ghost hunts. But I'm kind of thinking they embraced their best life and went out there to fill the void.
They met up with the ghost facers.
They could be so much more competent.
And they then joined them on their whole, the ghost facers redid their whole online show approach, and who were there? Damien and somebody joined them and became part of their crew.
Mm-hmm. And I could see them maybe not getting involved directly with hunting in terms of doing it themselves, but kind of documenting it. I could see them, maybe following the ghost facers around who, every once in a while, they acted like jerks, but every once in a while they did actually come across, something that was for real. And, I could see them doing that, because they know this stuff is real. So, maybe they've got a whole series of, stories of ghost hunting, or werewolves in the suburbs, or
maybe they even do some debunking, like the Amazing Randy used to do, or whatever. Wasn't that the Amazing?
Or maybe they take over Fate magazine and they're actually running UFOs over Fayetteville.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? But I could see them doing that. I think that they were, interested enough in the whole idea to want to stay involved, at least peripherally. But I don't know that I would have seen them diving deep.
Yeah, they wouldn't want to be the ones making the confrontations.
What about Jesse and Caesar, the two guys from the Chitters episode who retired? And did they stay retired? Did they come back to be hunter adjacent? What do you think? Or are they running a bar somewhere in Mexico?
They're running a bar in their ranch somewhere. I don't remember where they said they had bought the land. Was it in like the Southwest, or was it in Mexico or something? They're off living their best life.
Maybe they're running the bar.
Like their bar. Yeah, their bar may be hunter friendly.
Right.
So hunters can come there and get, resupplied and rest and all that, much like the Roadhouse or something. But they don't actually hunt themselves or anything. They're just a sanctuary.
Okay.
Right.
So here's one for you. Chuck is human. What's he doing now?
He's a bathroom cleaner at Grand Central Station.
He has to go and work in some of the kinds of places that he blew up. Like, was it a video store that we saw in the, or it was something, or like a Radio Shack kind of
right.
place.
It was a Radio Shack kind of place.
So, he I don't know. I think with Chuck, the loss of control would have been the worst, even though, the whole idea was, well, I'm tired of all this and I don't want to have to be responsible. And I don't, his reasons for backing out of it in the first place. But I think I could see him, I think he would probably still be an author, and being observant in terms of what are people doing, maybe writing thrillers. I don't know.
But they never get published.
Well, not in the way he wants anyway.
he teams up with Jim Baker and gets a televangelism show on the PTL network and rakes in a lot of money, and then probably has to skip the country because they were doing some shady things. And maybe he's running a some sort of disinformation network on the dark web where he's spinning out these conspiracy theories because that's what he did. So yeah,
Right.
I can
I
see him being a
I
televangelist.
Oh, that's
I
pretty funny.
picture him really just like being pretty rootless, and he wanders through towns and he picks up odd jobs here and there, you know, dishwasher, you know, bathroom cleaner, whatever. But he's always telling people about, but I used to be God and I used to have
Yeah.
all this. But nobody ever believes him. They're just like, oh man, he's a loony.
Right.
Came back without his
He
power
just,
and he kept trying to
he's
snap
just,
people.
you
Yeah.
know,
That is funny to
Yeah.
think. Yeah. And well, back when I was God, what?
yeah. And people are just like, oh my goodness, you know.
So
Yeah.
who haven't we thought of who might still be around? I mean, I guess we're assuming that Claire and the girls stick
Right.
with and just, you know,
Yeah, I
go
mean, what was it? Alex was going to be a nurse. So once
and
again, they're very hunter friendly, hunter adjacent.
Kaya came Patience.
No, Kaya left again.
Did she?
Yeah, the first Kaya died, and then the second Kaya went back to her world and
But
got
they got
destroyed
the
with it.
real Kaya back. They got the real
They did.
Kaya
I
back.
must have blocked that out.
It was not a memorable episode, but the Dark Kaya went back to her world when the Thanos snap was going
Oh,
on.
you're right. You're right. They traded. They traded
And they
Kaya.
brought
You're right.
real Kaya back, and then real
So she's
Kaya.
off. So she's off with Claire. They're doing whatever. Patience is, you know, running a little tarot shop, and
That's
you
a good
know, yeah. And just so does Adam ever get to come back, or is he a goner?
Well, that's all. Isn't that like one of the big unanswered questions from the show?
Yeah.
No, he got stabbed by Lucifer, or at least his body did.
Oh, all right. So he's
went-
really, Adam's really dead.
Adam's really dead. But
Okay.
now, what about the other Adam and Seraphina? You know, the Adam who was with Eve, but then was with Seraphina, and they ran the hippy dippy shop and got,
Oh, Adam, and they had to get his rib.
yeah.
Oh, that. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. That was
They
funny.
branched out into peyote.
They might have been selling it under the table, or they could have gone to a weed friendly state and they have a nice farm now.
Aren't they all weed friendly states at this point? Pretty much.
Mushroom.
They're
Yeah.
open. So they ended up branching out, and they now have their own franchises of spiritual dispensaries. So you can go for your chakra stones and your magic herbs all in one place.
And your brownies.
And your brand. And your sunglasses.
Yeah. Yeah, that he was an interesting character, that's for sure. You know, when you think about the different depictions of that character, and you think about
That was not one of them.
yeah. Well, when you think about Adam on Lucifer, the show Lucifer, the Adam character that shows up in the final season is kind of, you know, kind of interesting. And neither of them are what I would have expected, you know. And so I find that, so I'm intrigued by that, because it was something completely, you know, opposite of what I was expecting. So yeah, but to have him running basically a head shop in wherever he lived, was it in California? Where were they? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Somewhere out west.
So, you know, that was amusing.
Okay, what happened to Marie, who ran the Supernatural musical?
Oh yeah. Oh, I love that episode. Oh, and we get to talk about that very soon. I had
Is she
forgotten
on
how
to
much.
Broadway? Is she working with Lin-Manuel? Is she, is she off Broadway?
Or has she
Well,
gone to the movies?
I think she's trying to do plays based on some of the supernatural books, serving at, the play in that episode is supposed to be kind of an amalgamation of several different things, but I could see her trying to do a series of of that kind of thing. And not just that. I think she would be, now that she is tuned in to the fact that this stuff was real, and that she might have gone down kind of that path where she would be incorporating that into her work. But Dean did call her Shakespeare several times, so she's pretty much obligated to continue as a playwright.
Well, maybe she bought the bar that Dean's friend Lee, who had the monster in the basement, obviously he wasn't there anymore, and turned it into a dinner theater that does, in the round plays based on the Winchester Gospels. And so she stays tied in with, again, preserving the Winchester legacy and making sure that they're never forgotten.
Maybe she ends up working with Becky.
That's true. I could see Becky involved with this dinner theater idea. Yes. She'd probably be very good at it. Except the two of them might be a little bit like oil and water. I don't know.
Or they would be such besties.
Right. Yeah. It could go either way. Yeah. Go either way.
Oh, geez.
So who else? There were so many good side characters that we only got to see in an episode or two, but
What about Kate the werewolf?
Yeah.
Is that the one from Bitten?
What's that?
Is that the one from Bitten?
Yes.
Oh.
And the one
we saw her, we left with her walking down the train tracks. Yeah, she got hit by a train.
Yeah. Yeah, she said they let her go, but she said she didn't want to do it again.
Yeah, that was good. I like that when they said, well, maybe we'll see you around or something, was what Dean said, and she's like, God, I hope not, or so, yeah, something to that effect. And I choose to believe that she managed to do what she set out to do, which was to live the life she was living until the whole thing with her sister happened. So I think that what she would do to occupy herself, or for a living, I don't know. It would be nice to think that maybe she managed to go back and see her parents at some point, because that obviously meant a lot to her. So maybe she got to reconnect with them, having come up with some kind of good story as to what happened to Tasha and why she's not around anymore. But anyway, that I thought that her character was, very interesting, and I give the actress a lot of credit for that. I thought she pulled that off really well.
I think maybe she matched up with the pastor who was running the rehab center, whose daughter was cutting off people's fingers, and they were running some sort of support group for newly turned werewolves and vampires and supernatural creatures. And this is where they can go and say, hi, I'm Kate, and it's been 3 years since I last bit someone, and everybody, very supportive.
And they're working with Garth. Garth could be guiding,
right,
people to them, and involved in this and everything.
And certainly a guest speaker at their program every now and then.
How about Cole? He's the guy that I never thought Dean should have let go. But he did.
He got hit by the train.
He got hit by what?
He got hit by the train.
Okay, I can live with that.
Well, the thing about Cole is that, when Dean was explaining to him about his own father, when he tells him, let me tell you what happened that night. There had to have been something, in order for him to believe such a, what most of us would consider a wild story. There must have been something in his father's demeanor or in something in their lives that made him question, saying, oh, well, maybe that's what he was doing when this happened, or that's why he came home with. You could see the wheels turning. We weren't privy to what what his thoughts were, but it was like, it seems to me as though he would not be, or not have been, as willing to accept Dean's story if he didn't have some kind of backup himself telling him, okay,
some kind of gut reaction to
yeah,
something that maybe didn't make sense at the time,
right.
but now as he hears this is like, oh,
Yeah,
Okay,
even if anyway, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Go ahead.
Well, and even if it was just a matter of, well, was his father turned? Maybe he started out completely human, but he got turned by something and, became this monster. There are all kinds of things that he could have been thinking about. But I think Dean had to let him go, because otherwise, I mean, for where that particular episode would, having just seen that recently, because season 10, I think he had to let him go in terms of the story and what Dean's own journey was. The
Okay,
guy was a human, for one thing.
how about Cassie? Dean's old
Oh
girlfriend?
yeah,
Order,
yeah.
Route 666. So now she
Oh
knows.
that Cassie.
Yeah, Cassie, the reporter. So
she's
did
working for
she?
her Pulitzer.
Yeah.
And she did live, right? So
Yes,
as far as we
yes,
know,
knows
okay.
that.
Dean slept with her, not Sam.
Yeah. Really,
Yeah, well,
Dean
I guess.
is not as dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. She's probably still very ambitious, but I wonder, now that she knows about the supernatural, knows that Dean wasn't lying to her, does she become an investigative reporter to suss out the humans who support and benefit from supernatural trafficking and, guys like the FBI agent who was selling off people parts on the dark web? Maybe she goes into that sort of investigative reporting.
I kind of feel like she was so resistant to everything Dean said to her until finally it was really rubbed in her face that I picture her more as just completely turning back away from it. This was some kind of incredible aberration, and that's it. And maybe she goes the other way and she becomes someone to debunk things and writing articles about, this guy who says he can really do magic, or this, haunted house that, isn't really a haunted house. And maybe she's more of a myth buster than a, investigator in the sense of trying to really solve anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. She's more like, I don't believe any of this still anymore, and, goes off on that path.
And for our last one, how about AU Charlie? Again, assuming she comes back after the Thanos snap with her girlfriend. What's she doing? How's she living her best life?
I think she is ecstatic to be in a world that has LARPing, because they didn't have that in the AU.
Right.
So she's just happy that she's got. The thing with the AU people, to me, is they still had many of those intrinsic qualities. They had grown up with different experiences, but the essential persona of them was very much, the same. And so I picture AU Charlie still having all of these yearnings and stuff, but in her world, which was so stunted, there wasn't any expression, and she comes to this world and it's like, you can dress up and do all of this stuff, and
Right.
look, you are superheroes, and here's this, and all of this large, colorful, larger than life things going on. And I think she just, she probably does freelance IT work, makes, money hand over fist, and then gets to just enjoy all of these new pursuits that are so fun and fulfilling for her.
She can travel the country going to run fairs.
That's it.
That kind of thing. And you make a good point about the fact that, with the characters that we see, that we have the AU version and the version that, the regular original, whatever you want to call it, the ones we were used to. And I think they did a nice job of making them different enough that that it, like our Charlie was, every time she came on the screen, well, other than when the episode where she's trying to strangle Dean, other than that, whenever she comes on the screen, it's like everything lightens. Everything is fresher, everything's brighter. But the other Charlie wasn't that way. And a lot of it has to do with, as you were saying, it's because her whole, where she was from had a huge impact on that. So even though there were characteristics that were the same, the personality was not. And that was true with Bob, between the two Bobbies also.
Now, Felicia Day did say that scene where Dark Charlie was strangling Dean was one of the highlights of her career. If you remember how she tried to strangle Dean.
Right.
Yes. So it worked out for everybody. Well, folks, we're at the end of our time already, but this has been a lot of fun. So let's tell everybody where people can find you, starting this time with Carole Malcolm.
Yes, if you go to Facebook and type in DragonCon Urban Fantasy, you will come right to the track Facebook page, which is active throughout the year. It's more active at sometimes than others, of course, but there is something, I try to post something there every day. So that's one way to keep up with what's going on. Any of our virtual panels that we've done, beginning with When We Had To in 2020, can be found on our YouTube channel, which you can also find by just going and typing in DragonCon Urban Fantasy Track, and you will find it there. Those are the two best places to find our content, and I hope people will come and check them out.
Great. Carole Stokes?
You can find me here on Facebook, in the TFWNC group, in Continual, and on, of course, my own Facebook page. All of my fanfic is on AO3 under firesign10, and I'm on Twitter as true_firesign10.
I'm pretty easy to find at gailzmartin.com, morganbryce.com. If you can spell those right, you'll find me on all the other social media channels. I have a YouTube channel called Writing in Winchesters, which has our more than 80 continual panels on Supernatural that we've done so far, which are also in the continual YouTube channel. I run the Supernatural TFWNC group here on Facebook, right for the Winchester family business, but most of the time you can find me here on Continual. So thank you so much for being with us and for a wonderful what if conversation. And thanks to all of you for watching and listening. There'll be a lot more Supernatural coming up here on Continual, so we'll see you online.